What's up, War Rapport family? It is your boy C-Dub. As you can see, we are discussing wide receivers tonight. More specifically, we're going to be ranking them in terms of pecking order going into fall camp. We'll discuss that as well as expectations for them in the passing game during the upcoming 2024 season. All that and more in tonight's edition of the Midweek Report. Happy Hump Day, everyone. Hey. Welcome to the Midweek Report, courtesy of show sponsor, the Rage Room, the Opelika Rage Room. Amazing business in 2 locations. Listen, guys, rage is a very healthy emotion. Okay?
Is it?
Yes.
That's not what my therapist is.
Well, your therapist never heard of the Opelika Rage Room, where you can go get that rage out and break some stuff, okay? And if you just so happen to be in the Birmingham area, the address is below. Stop by, get your rage out, especially this spring with there's been some disappointment in some of our sports. Exercise that by going to the Opelika Birmingham Rage Room. Show them some love. We gladly appreciate it. Also, show us some additional love on this particular episode by sharing this video in your group chat, social media, wherever you can share this video. Smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Mike G, we got some film to review from A-Day.
Oh, we do have film to review. And it's not us that's going to be reviewing it. It's going to be your boy Ike. He's going to take you to the promised land where there's milk, honey, and film. $5.99 a month.
It's a nasty combination.
Look, that was a biblical reference, Caesar. Look, guys, become a patron, help support the work that we're doing here. You guys probably been peeping us live at a lot of things lately. Now that your boy is back in town, back in Alabama, I will be there. You can help me continue to be there by becoming a patron, $5.99 a month. We appreciate everybody who signs up for this. These are like micro sponsorships. So micro sponsor the War Rapport, become a patron. Also, you know what, guys? You can help somebody else become a member by hitting that gifted membership button. This is a great program that YouTube has started to help give the gift of membership of your favorite YouTube channel to a fellow subscriber. So if you interact with our channel at a high level, but you haven't made the decision to become a patron yet, you might be on the receiving end of one of these gifted memberships. So check that email. Stay tuned. YouTube is handing these things out like hotcakes as you guys give them to your fellow members. Also, check us out on podcasts, every single podcast network. We're there. The Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop in just a sec, bringing you guys a lot of audio-only content. So on your way to work, at the gym, at the grocery store, whatever you're doing, we got you covered with audio-only content here at the War Rapport. Last but certainly not least, this show is brought to you by show sponsor Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Did you know 1 man every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer? In fact, testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer amongst men ages 15 to 35. With April being National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, our friends over at Manscaped have partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to help spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. Visit manscaped.com/TCS to learn how to check yourself for early signs of cancer. And as always, you can use promo code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. I want to take a second to talk about some men's health issues that are important to us here at the War Rapport. Look, guys, we partner with, from time to time with Outlive. And this is part of their mission is, hey, get people screened. And, because sooner you catch cancer, the better your chances are of treating it effectively and eradicating it completely. So get checked. Outlive does great work over there. Manscaped is getting in on this deal by helping people discover things early, get them checked, man, and they're giving the gift of life here, man, by helping people get checked. So we love them over at Manscaped for doing this. Usually we have like a funny ad read for them. Today it's a little bit more serious, but it's something that we feel like is worth discussing. So manscaped.com, use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com.
And they have some really good products, by the way.
They do.
They have some pretty amazing products. So shout out to Manscaped. And shout out to a few of you who have already jumped on board. We have some amazing members. And some of our members tend to demonstrate how amazing they are from time to time. Auburn Dad for Life gifted 5 War Rapport memberships. Yay. Followed by our good friend Haley, who also gifted 5 War Rapport memberships. Auburn Dad for Life comes back and says, Word Amigo, love you guys and fam. We love you too, sir. Hope all is well with you and your family. Mike G. Spring camp is done. And now we're entering into the dreaded off season where we're talking about stuff, random stuff.
It's talking season.
135 days until the college football season starts up again. 135 days, 16 hours, 53 minutes, and no seconds. All right. The countdown. I'm looking at the countdown.
I've heard Josh Pate likes to measure this in Saturdays.
Does he?
He's like, he's like 20 more Saturdays until we're there. And I'm like, ooh.
The countdown has officially begun now that we're done with spring camp. But one of the big topics we want to talk about is Auburn's wide receiver room. This has been a very maligned group over the past few seasons. And we want to kind of just give a rundown. And what I'm going to do, Mike G, is I'm going to list the receivers.
Okay.
And I want you to give kind of a breakdown, an overview of what this spring was like for each guy. And from there, we'll kind of talk about what we think these guys will fall in terms of the pecking order going into fall camp. So without further ado, here are the guys in our wide receiver room who are scholarship only. We're only listing scholarship receivers, okay? They are as follows. Robert, the guys on the left-hand side are the newcomers. The returning receivers are just on the right. Just 4 receivers returning from last season. Robert Lewis on the left-hand side, Bryce Kane, Sam Jackson, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons. You see them in parentheses this summer. They will be enrolling in the summer. On the right-hand side, you have Jay Fair, Coy Moore, Caleb Burton, and Camden Brown, who all suited up in the 2023 season, who were here during spring camp. Mike G, you want to give an overview just based on your intel about how this spring went for each of the guys listed on, starting with the left-hand side. Let's start with the left-hand side.
Look, you had some newcomers there, right? Obviously, Robert Lewis and Sam Jackson were transfers in. The other 4 guys in this room were recruited straight out of high school. So Bryce Kane and Cam Coleman made it for the spring semester as freshmen. It's funny. After A-Day, Cam took a shower and went to his prom that night. So, listen, he's brand new. He's brand new, but he had to go to prom later that night. So I'm lucky. He did. Like, I hope he won prom king. If he didn't win prom king, that's stop the count. But look, on A-Day, we saw everybody, obviously, but Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons, right? All these guys went out there and at least took, ran a play. It felt like Robert Lewis and Cam Coleman were the most featured here. Obviously, Cam Coleman had a huge A-Day, just lived up to every little bit of the hype. We heard early in spring about him maybe swimming a little bit, but what he proved is he's a guy that you can just put out there and he's going to go make a play for you. So when you are that kind of talent, you can overcome maybe what you don't know about system and routes and things and just go out there and make a play for your quarterback. And that's what Hugh Freeze wanted. He wants a guy with a good catch radius. I think we saw him make almost every kind of catch you can make here on Saturday at A-Day. And Cam Coleman has obviously lived up the hype, so we won't spend a lot of time there. I think a lot of the debate is going to come between Sam Jackson and the others. Now, Robert Lewis played on the outside as well, too. Caesar, he looked fast. From all accounts, we heard he had a great spring camp. So Robert Lewis, that guy that came in from Georgia State, an experienced guy, hasn't played at the Power 5 level, but it looks like his skill set may actually translate here. So we'll see how he continues to develop. Bryce Kane is a super talented kid. Obviously, one of the freeze four that came in here, but didn't catch a pass on A-Day. And there were a lot of other outlets hyping Bryce Kane. And I'm telling you, while he's super talented, here at the War Rapport, we weren't getting a lot about him killing it during camp. I think, again, we got measure expectations for the freshman. Bryce Kane is going to be a difference maker down the road for Auburn. Will he be a difference maker in 2024? I don't think so. I think you saw a microcosm of that on Saturday, right? Like I said, he didn't catch a pass there. And then Sam Jackson, the super athletic former high school teammate of Peyton Thorne. He started at the slot. And when I get to the other side, we'll explain that. He wore a non-contact jersey on Saturday, but Sam had 2 catches on Saturday playing from the slot. And, look, he's an athletic guy. Is he a natural wide receiver? In my opinion, no. But based on what happened on the right side of this list, he had an opportunity to go out there and show what he can do. So that's pretty much it. Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons get here this summer. And, later in the show, we're going to rank these guys and where we feel like they'll be at going into the fall. But I expect that Perry Thompson will be a difference maker in this room, depending on how other things flesh out. Now, on the right side, you got Jay Fair, probably your best returning receiver. Look, man, last year they were graphics. Jay Fair is electric. The passing game just didn't go well last year. And I think that a lot of people felt like, he didn't perform. Well, listen, man, the passing game was a mess. Quarterback was a mess. The quarterback carousel was a mess. You had the fewest attempts, targets. Like Auburn did not have a wide receiver Caesar in the top 25 in the conference in targets. There were just not a lot of opportunities for these guys to catch the ball. So people were hyper-focused on the plays that they didn't make because there weren't a ton of plays out there for them to make, period. They dropped the ball at about an average rate for receivers in the SEC. Just stood out because, you were throwing the ball always on critical downs, right? 3rd and long. When you just had to have it, that's when you saw Auburn's wide receivers. So Jay Fair, obviously a slot guy. Coy Moore, just injuries have held him back. So he's had a very, very slow spring, an experienced guy, but he's had a slow spring. I think he was dealing, Caesar, with a concussion at some point during spring camp. And, obviously last year he had well-documented injury issues. Caleb Burton. Now, Hugh Freeze said that Caleb was dealing with some injuries. We saw flashes of his talent. I believe a former 5-star wide receiver that committed to Ohio State, ended up coming into Auburn. He's got obvious talent.
4-star. I think he was a
4-star.
Yeah.
4-star. Okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, he's talented. He caught a really, really nice ball from Hank Brown against Maryland in the bowl game. And, he's got speed and he's got hands. He's kind of a tweener. Ike has talked about this, about do you put him at the slot? Do you put him on the outside? Probably a better slot guy than an outside guy. But, he's had somewhat of an auspicious spring camp as well. And then you got Camden Brown, who, of the 4 here on the right, I feel like proved the most this spring. Now, he had a lot to prove coming out of last season, but he looked good. And, honestly, he looked like what we heard last spring. Right. Sort of talent, the receivers struggled to make separation. But I want to say, I just think a lot of that system stuff it made a lot of the issues that people had with the wide receivers overblown. This was a bad system that they were playing in last year. Hugh Freeze has to own that. Like you hired Philip Montgomery, you brought him in here, and then y'all weren't on the same page, and everybody threw the talent under the bus for what they couldn't get together. I think Camden Brown was one of those guys who suffered from that lack of direction on offense that Auburn had.
I think a lot of the receivers in that room suffered from he had opportunities to account for it. And again, to your point that you made, you had when you don't have a lot of opportunities, it magnifies your drops and mistakes that you do make. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 100%. Look, man, he showed out this spring. Now, he was also dealing with some injuries. Everybody on the right side here was reported to have been dealing with some injuries and missed some practices and some time during spring ball, which opened up the door for some of the guys on the left to get some more reps. And, if you're Jay Fair, you're not really evaluating Jay. You know what you have in him at this point. Camden, you're maybe just seeing if you're evaluating him mentally to see if he can get out of his own head, but physically, you know what he can do, right? Coy, again, we'll talk about where we feel like these guys are at when we get to the ranking part. And then Caleb, again, we saw what he could do. There's less evaluation going on the right side of this list than there is on the left side of this list. So that's it. This is all Auburn has on scholarship, guys. 10 scholarship wide receivers right now, and this includes the guys who are coming in. That's not a lot. So if you got anybody to leave this room, you're going to have some depth issues. So they may have to go to the portal to pick up a couple guys just for depth purposes. Now, maybe there's a guy who is like, Dylan Gentry, who's a preferred walk-on, who maybe you promote if there's nobody appealing in the portal. There were some other guys who caught balls at 8A that, played at receiver, but, aren't technically on scholarship. We'll see how Hugh Freeze decides to manage it.
It's hard to imagine giving a scholarly to a preferred walk-on who's a freshman, true freshman, unless they've just been amazing.
Yeah.
Up to this point. So I anticipate Hugh Freeze going to the portal for sure, and getting probably 2 receivers at the least. But again, that's always tricky because we saw how that worked last year when Hugh Freeze went to the portal to get receivers in this portal window. Even in the first portal window, as Ike alluded to, we didn't exactly strike gold in some aspects as well. So it's risky. So we'll see. So we listed the wide receivers.
We did.
We're going to rank them 10 all the way going down to 1 in terms of their contribution, or not necessarily contribution, but the pecking order going into fall camp. We want to hear from you guys as well, who you think in terms of 10, ranking the guys who we have listed. Again, I'll put the list up again so you can see them. We want to hear from you in the comment section. Who's 10 all the way down to 1? We want to hear from you guys. Definitely want to check out your comments. Mike, you ready?
I, sir, am ready. I was born ready, Caesar. I can
tell. I can tell. Let's do it then. Here we go. 10 through 6 in terms of who we think, and I guess we can start at. Let's start at 10. You got Coy Moore here. Talk to me why you think Coy Moore in terms of are you insinuating something here, Mike G?
Yeah, I think Coy Moore probably most likely to transfer after spring. And, if he wants to play, I think it's pretty clear who they brought in that, he's not going to get time on the field here. He's just, it's, he's had a couple of years to do his thing. A guy who things just didn't work out for him, Caesar, with injuries and, with the talent that they brought in. This coach has proven that he's going to invest heavily in the guys that he's brought in. And, Coy's not one of those guys. Coy is a great student athlete. From what we understand, he's a good person. We sat down with him. We've talked to him. He's a kid that does, everything that you ask of him. And can't say enough about his character and who he is as a person. But, writing's on the wall, I think, in terms of whether he's going to be able to achieve anything athletically here at Auburn. So I've got Coy Moore at number 10. I think you agree with me here, putting Coy down there.
Yeah, I actually have him at 10 as well.
Yep.
Number 9 is Malcolm Simmons. Talk to me why you got Malcolm at 9.
Okay. Another one of those super talented freshmen. However, coming in after the spring, similar to Bryce Kane, who is also very talented, part of the Freeze 4. We say Freeze 4, but really they brought in our guy, Dylan Gentry. This is a Freeze 5. And if Dylan had a scholarship, he'd be up here at number 2, as far as I'm concerned. That's how much swag he's got.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? No, you don't know what I'm saying? Okay, all right, I'll move on. Look, Malcolm Simmons, again, I think that he will be a guy that they look to for the future. He'll help make this team better in other ways in his first year. having super talented receivers to run on scout team is an underrated part of having a good football team, right? You get to go good on good all the time. And I think that that's great. Look, Malcolm Simmons is going to get here this summer. He's going to work out. Do I expect him to play a role come fall? I don't. I think he's another one of those guys you give a year to get acclimated to the system, and then you put him out there and you see what he can do.
Okay. I actually have Malcolm Simmons in my personal list. I have him higher than mine.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I actually believe Ike about Caleb Burton. Ike did a list earlier this week in terms of guys he thinks, and I actually can kind of see Caleb Burton hitting the portal. So I actually have him down at 9.
Okay.
Here. Yeah. So in terms of pecking order, I'm putting the guys that I think who actually may be gone.
Like at the bottom. Yeah.
At the bottom.
Right. Look, that's fair.
You can't really compete for a job if you ain't here.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I actually am with Ike on the Caleb Burton made transfer thing. There are some circumstances that might keep him here, so I was in between on this one. But look, man, Caleb obviously jumping up to number 8 is a talented kid, right? And just kind of waiting on his right situation. We saw flashes of that talent last year. Will he get a chance to show it here at Auburn? I'm not sure. Like, the pressure is on with these new kids that are coming in. Commitments are being made to these guys when they commit. And look, man, similarly to how we see Thorne has gotten every single opportunity to prove that he is or isn't the quarterback for Auburn next year, I think a lot of these receivers are going to get that same opportunity. So the leash will be shorter for the incumbents, and for the kids coming in, you're going to see a lot of opportunity extended to them. And that's just how I'm feeling about it. So that's why Caleb Burton is so low on this list. I know that some guys may, a lot of people were high on him going into the offseason. This is not a reflection of whether we feel these guys have talent, and I can't stress that enough. Right. This is the totality of where they're at, how we expect Auburn to use receivers next year and where they fit into that plan.
And the reality of the matter is that for Caleb Burton, you gotta remember where he left, Mike. He left Ohio State. So obviously this kid believes he needs to be on the field, right?
Right.
So based on where you currently are, injuries and whatnot slowing you down, you probably feel like, you know what, I should be seeing the field at this point if Ohio State was recruiting me out of high school. So that could be another potential reason that he may enter the portal. So we'll just see. We don't know for sure what these guys are going to do, but this is just a hunch. But you got Malcolm at 9. I got Caleb at 9. So that's kind of where we are. You got Caleb at 8. So let's go to pretty much I flip-flop those guys. So that's the difference there. So we can move on to 7. Bryce Cain is 7.
Yeah, look, depending on who you listen to, Bryce Cain was Superman this spring, and this kid has a ton of talent. He's fast. Caesar, Bryce Cain is fast, and he's got moves. Didn't catch the pass on A-Day, but he'll have a role in this offense down in the future. The reason I got him down here at number 7 is I just don't suspect it'll be this year. I don't. Auburn may end up running a ton of 12 personnel, and they're probably going to play Bryce Cain out of the slot, which means slot receiver reps are going to be limited. He was another one of these young freshmen that was swimming a little bit this spring, trying to pick everything up. And I believe in his talent and his upside, but Freeze is building this thing for the long run, and I think that he won't be in a hurry to throw a kid like Bryce Cain out there. Listen, injuries and other things could change all this, but as of right now, if everybody stays healthy, I think Bryce Cain is a guy who's a year away from being, an SEC starter.
Okay. But again, he's a freshman, so he's pretty much just going to have to take his lumps as a youngin and work his way up, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Sam Jackson.
All right, Sam Jackson. Okay, look, super athletic guy, former Cal quarterback. Look, man, he can move. If you can ball, you can just ball, right? I think Sam Jackson is one of those guys who could just ball. Put him out there, let him make plays. We've heard Peyton Thorne talk about how big his hands are, which, again, may help him secure the football, or things that are thrown at him. But he projects as a slot guy.
Yeah.
Right. So as somebody who has not played a ton of receiver at the Power 5 level, what I suspect is you'll see Sam Jackson, kind of a backup slot guy going into the season. Right now, he had a non-contact jersey on during A-Day. Oddly enough, they like tackled him.
Yeah, I saw that play. I was like, that was wild.
He got tackled.
Wow.
He had a yellow non-contact jersey on, but got tackled during A-Day. I thought it was funny. He popped right up like the G he is, Sam Jackson, the G. I'm tired of you snakes. So, look, Sam Jackson, they felt like maybe had an opportunity to come in as a guy who had utility. If you had to recruit him, in the recruiting process, you're not sure a guy fits, but he's got a bunch of, athletic gifts. They just label him athlete. I think that's what Sam Jackson is. I think he's just an athlete. Now, is there a role for him at wide receiver? That will be largely determined by how well the guys on the top half of this list fare. So Sam Jackson may very well get an opportunity to prove that he can be a receiver at this level. And it may not take a lot for him to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the top 5 then, since we're here already. Drum roll. Here's 5 through 1 through 5. Here it is. So you got Perry Thompson, who's not on campus yet. We got Perry Thompson at 5. And again, we want to stress, because we see some people saying this person is not top 5 or this person is da-da-da-da-da. We're talking pecking order, right? And Mike, you mentioned something to me off camera I'm assuming you can share this. If players were injured in the spring and they missed a lot of reps or they missed significant amounts of practice, it meant that they were automatically demoted to second string.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with their talent or abilities as much as it is the coaches haven't seen them get enough significant snaps to evaluate them to determine if they are the better receiver. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Listen, you get hurt, the other guy gets promoted, and they start taking reps. You get in the flow, and they continue on with that. You don't automatically always slot right back in after you come back from injury. And so we talked about the scholarship guys, Fair, Moore, Camden Brown, Caleb Burton. Hugh Freeze, all these guys were dealing with injuries at some point during the spring. Coy, it was like concussions. Jay Fair had a hamstring thing that he was dealing with. So you don't rush him back. You're not evaluating whether Jay Fair can play football or not. You know what he can do. You just give him time to get healthy, and then you get the reps to the other guys because they need it more than Jay does. Right? You know what he can do. You'd rather see what you have in Sam Jackson right now, if you ask me. Right. Because evaluating who might come behind Jay is really, really important. If you follow the script of last year, Jay again dealt with some nagging injuries and there were some things there. And when guys get hurt, you need to know who's backing them up. That's it. That's what the spring is for. So a lot of people bought too much into the rotations that they saw on A-Day, when the truth is these super experienced guys, we said this about Peyton Thorne. We're like, how much do you really need to evaluate Peyton Thorne here in the spring? Or do you know what you have with them and you spend more time on Hank Brown and Holden Geriner and Walker White?
Yeah.
Especially if the coach has already decided he's going to be in first position going into the fall. I'd want to know what I have behind Peyton more if I'm in his position.
So who do you think? So since we here, let's just go ahead and mix it in. Who do you think is a serious contender to start opposite of Cam Coleman? Now, what we saw in spring camp was a lot of 12 personnel, which meant you had 2 receivers on the field.
2 receivers, 2 tight ends, 1 running back.
So when you have a 12 personnel with 2 wide receivers, we saw Robert Lewis line up as the opposite receiver, even though in my personal opinion, I see this guy actually playing more in the slot. But what are your thoughts with that?
The staff is leaning toward putting Robert Lewis on the outside. And that's we saw at A-Day, right? Like they're going to play Robert Lewis on the outside. And I think it will be a battle between him and Cam Brown for who takes that, slot opposite Cam Coleman. But if it's not painfully clear to everybody at this point, Cam Coleman is going to start game 1.
Right.
Right. He's going to start game 1. So erase the drama at the top of this list.
So if Lewis is on the outside, then even with Jay Fair being injured, and granted, we saw a lot of 12 personnel, who is the number 1 slot guy? It's obvious to me the way you have this list is Jay Fair.
Yeah, and what they did on A-Day, so they again over the second half of A-Day, they ran a lot of 12 personnel. So in the lead up to A-Day, what they did in practice was they moved Jay Fair to the outside to get him reps to get him on the field. Right? Because you're not evaluating him at the slot, or you know what he could do from the slot. Right. But if you're running 12 personnel and you want to get Jay Fair on the field, that's why we didn't see him a ton over the last half of the season, was they were running a bunch of 12 personnel and he's a slot receiver.
Right.
If you're Jay, you're probably thinking that's not going to work for me.
And do you think that's why a lot of people think that, especially if we continue with a lot of 12 personnel, do you think that could be an argument for why some people think Jay Fair could be entering the portal?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a little bit of this, but ultimately these guys sit down with the coach and talk about what the game plan is. I think what you saw was they were saying, "Look, we'll find a way to get you on the field."
Yeah.
We'll find a way to get you on the field. So we're going to let you work at outside receiver so that when we go into 12 personnel, there's still a role for you. And that's what happened there was no role for him over the last half of the season with all the 12 personnel they were running. But, like I said, I think that Lewis I think that he has potential. He's got the quickness, and I think that he looks good on the outside. I don't know that I like Jay Fair playing on the outside. So hopefully there's some version of this passing game where he gets to play from the slot and you see him, Robert Lewis, and Cam Coleman on the field at the same time.
Right.
But I think it's a way. I don't think it's in Jay or Auburn's best interest to play him at the outside.
Okay. So going in the fall, I don't know how big of a deal this is.
Okay.
But this is what I'm looking at right here. By the way, I agree with you. I think I have you list for list in terms of 1 through 5. I'm looking forward to the 4 and 5 battle.
Mm-hmm.
Perry Thompson and Camden Brown probably. I mean, obviously Cam can be competing on one side, Perry on the other. But I'm curious to see how they look in terms of competing to get on the field. They're probably in that second rotation as far as the outside receivers. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, look. So the way this is slotted, this is how I see it, right? Cam Coleman's on the field. If he comes off the field, who's going on? Right?
That's where the 4 and 5 battle comes into play for Camden and Perry Thompson.
Yeah, when Robert Lewis comes off the field, who's going on? Well, I think Perry Thompson is good enough right now, even missing the spring, to probably work his way into that backup wideout spot. So I got him at 5. You got to have a slot receiver somewhere here in the top 5, and the most experienced slot receiver you have is Jay Fair. That's why he is where he is. So until further notice, Jay Fair is going to be a top 5 because I assume that they'll send him out, that barring injury, they're going to send him out there first at the slot. But if you're running 12 personnel, you need 4 guys, 2 on each side that can go out there and go make a play for you. Well, we see what Cam Coleman could do. Throw it anywhere near him. That touchdown pass that Thorne made to Cam, that wasn't a great ball, but it was a hell of an adjustment and elite concentration. That was an elite catch. And if you're Auburn, you have not had that on the outside. So he's got to see the field. Can Perry Thompson be a guy that can go out and make that sort of catch on the outside? Well, the survey says yes, Caesar. He can be. Immediately. And you've had so little at that position that you got to give him a shot this year, right now, to go out there and make a play. Cam Coleman comes off the field. Perry Thompson goes on. They think, oh, Cam came off. We're going to play up Perry Thompson for the touchdown. That's how Andy Burcham is going to call it.
Okay.
That's the call. You slept on us because Cam came off the field, but Perry can come in and he can make those types of plays. And, honestly, like, I thought before the spring, like, Cam did some great work in the weight room, but Perry Thompson, man, like, when you walk up to this kid, I saw him outside the stadium before A-Day. As a matter of fact, I'm texting him right now. He said he's going to be on campus May 25th. Like, he's physically ready to play ball right now. Perry Thompson is a whole man. And he makes Auburn better immediately. Now, you know who else is a whole man? Camden Brown. He looked good on A-Day, right? Whether he can make it translate to Saturdays is going to be the question. So between Cam, Lewis, Brown, and Thompson, I think Auburn has a lot of talent there to work with.
The thing is with Cam Brown, and we got to get to the break. The thing with Cam Brown is I saw what Cam Brown and I saw what Jay Fair could do when you actually got the ball to them in the bowl game. Even though it was a small sample size with Hank Brown throwing the ball, I saw what Jay Fair could do in open field. He's pretty dangerous if he gets the ball in open field and he gets loose. Cam Brown didn't look as bad as people made him out to be once he got the ball in open field.
Yeah.
And that continued in the spring game for Cam Brown. So we can see some of the ability there with him. So I'm curious to see if he continues to build on that going into the summer, going into the fall, and how Perry Thompson factors into that. It's going to be pretty exciting to see, Mike.
Yeah, I think so. Look, man, Camden he had a great A-Day, I thought. He caught what was thrown at him. He made some moves. He got upfield, and we've seen the Cam Brown show that first year. You remember him high pointing the ball, a ball from Robbie Ashford against LSU 2 years ago. That's the Cam Brown I think that fans were hyped about going into the offseason. Can that guy show back up? There just weren't a ton of opportunities for them last year to catch the ball. As a matter of fact, Cam had more opportunities the year before with Robbie Ashford on a hurt shoulder. These guys didn't get a lot of opportunities to make plays last year. They just didn't. If you're Hugh Freeze, for the sake of the Freeze 4 that you brought in, you have to increase the targets that the wide receivers get. Because if you don't, if your starting quarterback is under 300 attempts for a second season straight, good luck holding on to these guys. You're going to have a hell of a time trying to convince these guys to come back and play in a system where they're just not getting targets.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not just the new guys. The incumbents had that issue too. I'm Cam Brown. I'm trying to get in a rhythm, and they never throw the ball at me. And then when they do, it's 3rd and long. And I'm triple teamed. And then I don't make the catch. And then fans are roasting me for not making the catch.
Yeah.
You got to create more. You got to create more chaos for the defense on offense, right? Less 3rd and longs, more 3rd and manageables, right?
Tempo's going to play a part in this too, Mike. Tempo's going to play a big part in this offense because we saw how effective, granted, it was against lesser competition in Vandy and Arkansas, but when this offense was using tempo, the offense looked better. There were opportunities for guys to make plays. But if you're getting 3 and outs and you can't even get into a rhythm offensively, again, the issues with wide receivers become downstream issues because you can't even get the ball to them. And then when you do get the ball to them, they're cold, passes get dropped. They're not even, and again, you've talked about it a lot, how LSU's receivers, they would drop passes with those receivers.
Malik Neighbors,
but they had so many opportunities that it overshadowed the drops that they had.
Yeah.
Those guys just got to get some opportunities. So we'll talk more about that when we come back from the break. But you're watching the Midweek Report. Please share this video, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're going to pay some bills, come back, read some of your comments, and then we will discuss expectations for these guys when the season starts.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Yeah, guys, go on, become a patron. I saw a couple of you guys do that on this broadcast, so congratulations to those who just became patrons. These are like micro sponsorships. They are it's a great way to keep the work that we're doing here at the War Rapport going. We covered a lot this year, Caesar. I mean, we were out in Spokane. We covered women's basketball. We were at gymnastics. We're at baseball. We're at football. We're everywhere Auburn sports is. The War Rapport is there trying to give you guys the inside scoop. Become a patron, help keep that work going. Big shout out to Auburn Dad and Haley Tubbs for giving away some memberships. Those guys hit that gifted membership button. You can too. Help give the gift of the War Rapport and help somebody else enjoy our channel at another level. I'm going to be doing some film breakdowns that you don't want to miss. That's going to be behind the paywall. Not behind the paywall is the Auburn Podcast Network, the Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. Go check us out there. So hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform and download every episode so you get notified when we post new content. We do that every single day. I'm going to go back to show sponsor, The Rage Room. Check them out. Look, guys, there might be a ton to rage about this fall. A lot. If you're an Auburn fan, you probably have anger issues. The Rage Room can help you with that. So whether you live in Opelika or Birmingham, they have a location for you. Check them out in downtown Opelika at 1510 2nd Avenue, Opelika, Alabama. Also in Birmingham, downtown Birmingham at 2616 7th Avenue South. We did an interview with Micah Riley over at the Rage Room. It was a ton of fun. Micah's a great kid, but we broke some stuff in honor of the 2024 season coming up and the way 2023 season ended. So if you haven't done this, great stress. They have literal cars. You can I think they let you jump on them or something. That's our guy Alex over there. But windshields, wine bottles, like tube TVs, you can bust up everything at the Rage Room. Also, this show is brought to you by BetUS. This show is brought to you in part by BetUS. Look, guys, they issue payouts within 24 hours, and you get a sign-up bonus of 125% up to $2,500. The link is in the description of the video, so use that link, and you, through the War Rapport, can double your money on that first deposit. 24-hour customer service. They're doing it. If you like to bet on sports, BetUS has got you covered. Got lots of great bets and props over there. I personally like baseball during betting season. As in, my favorite sport to bet on is baseball. So they've got you covered over there at BetUS. Go check them out. And last but certainly not least, show sponsor Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Did you guys know one man every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer? In fact, testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer amongst men ages 15 to 35. With April being National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, our friends over at Manscaped have partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to help spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. Visit manscaped.com/TCS to learn how to check yourself for early signs of cancer. And as always, you can use promo code RAPPORT for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. That's code RAPPORT for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com.
All right, let's get into some of these comments. Corey Dubb says, I think only Coy Moore hits the portal. Barney Knight has Fair, Moore, and Burton hitting the portal. That's major if we lose 3 receivers because we'll only be down 7 scholarship receivers.
Yeah.
Obviously, we expect Hugh Freeze to hit the portal to get more, but still, that's 6 receivers in which only 1 returning receiver from the prior year.
I'm going to go ahead and
Wow.
kill because I think there's a message board. Jay Fair's not hitting the portal, guys. Like, so unless something changes between now and the season, and if it does, we'll know exactly what changed. But right now, there's no indication that Jay Fair is going to the portal.
B. Will's forehead says, I hope Jay doesn't transfer for your health. Might be pretty funny. That's a good one, B. Will.
As long as Jay is doing whatever's best for Jay, my health will be just fine. Right. But right now, I think that he's an Auburn Tiger and he's going to be one in the fall.
If anyone would know, you would know, Mike. So let's get to Auburn Dad for Life. Says Burton not going portal, but the others, yes. So he thinks Fair and Coy are going portal.
Yeah, man, brace yourself.
Barney Knight says Kane is also like $150 when we were talking about him. He is
probably put some weight on, right? Like, Cam Coleman put on, I thought, like 15 pounds of muscle so far this spring.
He looked amazing.
Yeah, he looks in good shape.
Yeah. Word Amigo Chris Causey says or asks, y'all think Bati is leaving again? You got any intel on this, Mike?
I don't. I wasn't surprised to see him like hit the portal and then he came back.
I was surprised that he came back.
Yeah, maybe he tested the waters and saw, like, again, more kids get lost in the portal than find homes.
Sure.
And they're not obligated to take you back once you hit the portal. So if they took him back, that means that they felt like there was a role for him on this team coming up, and it's probably going to be on special teams. He's an extremely athletic kid, and he had a hell of a time down at USF on special teams. I think he can bring that same electricity to Auburn again in 2024. And so if he's willing to accept whatever role's there for him, then he'll be on this team. But like I said, it's unless you're willing to take a step back in terms of the level of program you're going to, it might be best for him to stay put at Auburn.
I wouldn't surprise me if he left. It really wouldn't, because I could see him going to a smaller school, Mike, just to be able to prove himself at running back. He wants to play running back, obviously, right? And I think that's why he left South Florida, because he was the man down there in terms of special teams, but he wants to prove himself Power 5 level or somewhere else as a running back. So it wouldn't surprise me if he left again. I thought he was going the first time. So Corey Dubb comes back and says Coy Moore is 10, Coleman's 1. The rest is debatable.
That's pretty accurate.
It's accurate. All this is subjective for sure.
Sure.
Largwin Taylor became a member. Welcome, good sir. Stephen Neely says Robert Lewis. He has Robert Lewis opposite Cam Coleman.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those are your 2 wideouts to start the season.
I mean, they look like they were heads and shoulders the 2 best in spring in the A-Day game for sure.
Yeah.
My World of Sports says Robert Lewis, when Perry is on the field. When Perry isn't, I can see Lewis out wide. I was told Cam, Robert Lewis, Burton ran with ones.
Yeah, like there's a lot of misinformation about like who's running with who, right? Like I said, it's the injuries had a lot to do with this spring with who ran where, right? So again, I would not read too much into the rotations other than Cam Coleman consistently running with the ones. But again, that's not a shock to anybody.
Right.
They had to, let other guys rest. And, we talked about the guys who were injured at some point during the spring. And so it's next man up. You still got to run offense. You still got to run practice. So it doesn't mean that it will stay that way going into the fall.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Mike, what are the expectations for these guys in terms of the passing game? Obviously, there's a big part of the passing attack that's out of their hands that they can't control. But what are your expectations for these guys in terms of year 2 under a Hugh Freeze offense?
I think you got to start with Cam Coleman, right? Like, can you make a 700 to 800 yard receiver out of Cam Coleman? He instantly makes your offense better. Like, think about that touchdown that he caught from Peyton Thorne. If Cam Coleman is out there doing that once a game, he's worth 7 more points per game to your offense, potentially. That's crazy to think about. Think about it. Cam Coleman moves you from 28 points a game to 35 points a game, means you're going to win a couple games that you may not have won without him. Right? Cam Coleman is an absolute game changer. So I think you got to start with Cam Coleman. Outside of that, right, is there another guy who's dangerous enough that you can't just double up Cam, or that can burn you when people say we're not going to let Cam Coleman beat us? Who's that guy? Does it open things up over the middle for a guy like Jay Fair? Right? And when those things are open, can they deliver the ball to those guys? Everybody needs to step their game up in 2024. Quarterbacks, receivers, coaches, and play calling, all of it has to get better in 2024. So you start with what you're asking them to do. What are we asking these kids to do? Are we asking them to do things that they're capable of? Or are we just saying, here, this is what we want you guys to do, regardless of what they're capable of, and saying if you can't do it, you're terrible? I think that they're going to be able to put guys in better positions to make plays this year with more alignment on offense and a play calling scheme that is consistent with what this coach wants to execute. Look, Caesar, it'll either work or it won't. But history suggests, that if Hugh Freeze does it his way, it will most certainly be better than what Auburn is accustomed to.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's good enough to win games or not, again, right now, I still think that the ceiling is 7-5 for this team. But I think that you can move the needle forward in terms of the type of offense you want to run and still only win 7 games. Auburn's not the only team trying to get better. Everybody acts like everyone else is just sitting on their hands, not doing anything, right? Guys are developing other places, right? Schemes are being developed other places. What is Auburn going to be able to do in 2024 to win more than 6 games? Well, hopefully you don't lose to your group of 5 team that you play. A loss to New Mexico would be absolutely devastating.
In year 2, for sure.
Oh, my goodness. You can't do that again, right? And then you've got 4 AP top 15 teams on your schedule. You have Bama beat. So it's not to say that it will be Bama again, but can you win the close game between one of those 4 AP top 15 teams? So who are those? You got Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri, and Alabama all on the schedule. Which one of those will these receivers help you beat? Because look, man, Missouri's going to score points. Does Cam Coleman help you beat Missouri? Do you have enough firepower in that secondary to beat a team like Missouri next year? I think that's what people are going to be looking for. You're going to have to play keep up with a lot of these high-powered offenses.
Right.
So, I think the expectation for these guys should be, Cam Coleman, 700 to 800 yards year 1. I think that you need at least another 500 to 600 yard receiver up behind him, and that's probably going to be close to 40% of your total production in the pass game.
You need a compliment to Cam Coleman.
You do. You
need to find a compliment. I think Robert Lewis is a reliable possession receiver. Maybe he's electric. Maybe we haven't got a chance to really see what he can do in open field. But you got some young talented guys like Bryce Kane could be that player who's electric. Malcolm Simmons can be that player. But because they're so young, Malcolm he's not even on campus yet. I'm looking at some of your older guys, maybe even a Robert Lewis or maybe even a Jay Fair to be those guys in open field who can spell Cam Coleman when teams are looking at him. Those guys in the slot making some plays. So I'm curious to see who's the second guy in this wide receiver this core that can step up. We've made a lot of much to do about who's the number 1 guy over the past several years because we've been thirsty for yards, Mike.
Yeah.
Right. We haven't had much production to even worry about who's number 2. You have a bona fide number 1 in Cam Coleman. I'm curious to see who steps up and is the number 2 receiver in this offense in 2024.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting. Again, when you look at the stats, right, when you look at the receiving stats from last year, and I'm pulling this up here, at the top half of the conference, Caesar, you had some monsters in the SEC, right? You had 2 of the best receivers in the country. As a matter of fact, between Luther Burton and Malik Neighbors, I thought one of those should have won the Bolitnikoff. How they gave it to Marvin Harrison Jr. over those guys, beyond me or whatever. But, the leading receiver in the SEC last year had 89 receptions and 1,500 yards. with 14 touchdowns to boot, right? Auburn on this list, right? The best receiver was like actual receiver, technically Rivaldo Fairweather in yards was Auburn's leading receiver. It's rough. JaMarr Johnson, right?
So, someone asked us about JaMarr Johnson.
Yeah, 19.
Someone asked if he is still in the portal, by the way. I don't know if anyone has picked him up. I haven't seen. Where would he rank if he was here? He probably would be in the top 5.
Yeah, I think it'd be battle between him and Jay for that slot.
Yeah,
certainly,
it'll be
right?
him and So
right.
it'll
play
definitely
outside a little bit too. I mean, he was a very versatile receiver, but
he wouldn't play outside this year,
right? Like Jay Fair was Auburn's leading receiver, right? In conference, in terms of receptions, and he had 31 receptions on the season.
You said Jay Fair, JaMarr Johnson.
Jay Fair, in terms of receptions, he had 31 receptions.
Okay.
Now, I think JaMarr Johnson had more yards than he did, but like 31 receptions is not a it's just not a lot, man. It's not a lot. And 324 yards, that's what I'm saying. You need Cam Coleman to be a 700 to 800 yard receiver, and then you need a guy who can come in behind him and produce 500 to 600 yards.
Like you're talking about a much improved system. If you get that, much improved, you're talking about a lot less dysfunction, and you're giving your running backs opportunities to work, man. If you're able to get that type of production out of your wide receiver room, you're giving your running backs a chance.
So Jay averaged 10.5 yards per catch. So like on average, every time he caught the ball, it was a first down. But the opportunities to catch the ball were not there. Right. They had a record low targets. So you gotta find a way to increase the targets for those guys, and you have to find a way to increase the pass attempts for your quarterback. Thorne's averages held. Dude, he's a low 60% passer. If you're only going to give him 266 attempts on a season, the numbers are going to be anemic. Unless he improves his completion percentage by nearly 10%.
Yeah.
And even then, it might be rough. So I don't, like I said, I think that people really underestimate like how few opportunities these guys had. Auburn had a 61-39 run to pass ratio. They ran the ball 61% of the time and passed it 39% of the time. There just wasn't a ton of opportunities. Hugh Freeze said it. He would like to get that closer to 50-50. Ideally, 55-45 is worked better for them. But giving those guys an extra 6% in terms of, chances to catch the ball and throw the ball would be huge for this offense. You have to trust your quarterback and you have to trust your receivers.
Yeah.
To do it. Otherwise, they're going to take the air out of the football and just play not to lose games.
Yeah. We will definitely see. We'll definitely see. Again, we need to see an improved system to give these guys a chance, Mike, to get that type of production. We want some happy receivers after 2024 because they've got opportunities to show what they can do on the field. Let's grab some of you guys' comments. We got some super chats from Corey Dub. He says, bigger question is, does Trey Donaldson come back? What type of NIL market is out there for a 7-point per game point guard?
Trey's going. He's not coming back, Corey. Trey's going.
That, to me, this one hurt. This one hurt worse because I actually anticipated Aiden Holloway hitting the portal. I'm going to be honest. When I started seeing Denver Jones getting some burn at point guard and bringing the ball up, I began to wonder this. Now, shortly after that, we start seeing Aiden Holloway start again. But I begin to worry and wonder, is this a sign that this kid may not be working out and he may be gone after the season?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Mike.
The minutes. I think that the minutes, when you are a star, you want to play more than how, like Bruce, he promised the greatest balance of minutes of any team he's ever coached in the preseason. He stayed true to his word on that. Now, is that good enough for you if you're Trey Donaldson or Aiden Holloway or Janai Broome, right? Because he's playing with balance, but you're taking your stars off the court more often. And I think a lot of these guys, while it's great if it works and you're winning championships, but after you get bounced in the first round, you may be sitting there thinking, oh, he didn't pull me off the court. Maybe we win. These guys have to see the vision that the coach, they have to buy into the vision that the coach has. And when it doesn't work out, they may look back on it and say, I need to go play someplace where I see more eye to eye with how the coach wants to use my talent. So, Bruce Pearl is a great coach. And this is something every school goes through, right? Where a talent doesn't agree with how the coach is doing certain things.
Stephen Neely says, assuming our offensive line has truly improved, can we project or expect more 3-wide sets, or is a Fairweather Micah Riley combo more dangerous?
Look, I would like to see more 3-wide receiver sets, but what I don't want to see is I don't want to see a bunch of 12 personnel where we're essentially in like max protect and you're not targeting the tight ends.
Yeah,
there weren't a ton of targets for the tight ends at 8A. So if that is representative of what they're going to do in the fall, it's going to be a rough year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing. We saw 3-wide receiver sets has been pretty standard in a Hugh Freeze offense. So if we're getting back to a Hugh Freeze offense, I do expect to see more 3-wide receiver sets. You could see some 12 personnel in the red zone with some of the things that we do there, but I'm expecting between the 20s, I want to see some 3-wide.
Yeah.
Erica Ratney, appreciate that, by the way, Stephen. Erica Ratney asked, does improvement in the wide receiver room hurt the amount of attempts to Rivaldo? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, maybe not. As long does volume go? I think does volume go up is the question, right? If the volume goes up, then no, because there'll be plenty to go around for everybody to eat. But obviously, if it doesn't, it's going to be tough. I think that Cam Coleman opens up your offense, though. I think the attention that he will draw from game one will net more opportunities for other guys to make plays because he's just that dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. Any closing thoughts on the wide receiver room? Our projected top 10 portal. What are your thoughts on wide receiver, man, before we get out of here?
Oh, yeah, before we get out of here, and I just want to pull this up again. This is where they stand, Caesar. Like, these are all the guys on scholarship that have a chance to return. Currently, right? Yeah. And so unless they go out and they get guys in the portal, this is your wide receiver room. I expect that at least 2 of these guys will be out of here. So, stressing to our listeners, 2 of these guys are going to hit and they're going to have to go out and they're going to have to find some talent to come in, or they're going to have to promote some guys that are on this roster but technically aren't on scholarship. How does Hugh Freeze view it? Right? Do you lean into the young guys that just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to just roll with these young guys and throw them in the fire year one and see what they can do for me, right? And develop them as backups. At wide receiver, certainly that's a position where if you're young, you could, as long as you understand your assignments, you could probably play early there. Maybe not as physically demanding as some of the other positions on the field where you need time to develop physically. I mean, we'll see. But I think that Robert Lewis was a great addition to this. I think Robert Lewis was a great addition. You're going to hear a lot of things. And, for our listeners, I can't stress enough. If it's not here at the War Rapport, it's fake news. We're the only ones reporting this thing right, baby. So come to the War Rapport for all your wide receiver news. We know what's going on here. No, I'm joking. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. But ultimately, I think that there's a balance in what you're hearing from message board fodder and Twitter rumors and all this stuff about what's going on. There are going to be some exits, and you should just go ahead and prepare for it. There are some shocking portal transfers. I don't know how anything shocks anybody in this day and age. Right. With NIL and with, some of the unrealistic expectations that players have, nothing is really shocking to me. But I think the guys on the right side of this chart, right, like there are 2 of these guys that have a chance. This is your chance to step up and prove you can do it, or they're going to move on to the guys on the left pretty quickly. So if you're Jay Fair and you're Camden Brown, primarily, now's your time to shine. I think they'll get the first opportunity in these first few games to show what they can do, right? Alabama A&M, right? Like, you can't go out and drop balls versus New Mexico and Alabama A&M and Cal. You can't. Because if they do, they're going to look at the left side of this list and they're going to be like, this is why we went out and recruited those guys. But they'll get first right over, you know what I mean? Like, they'll get their shot. They will certainly get their shot to prove that they belong in this starting lineup. And if they can at least perform at a decent level for the first few games, you could hold serve going into SEC play. But if it doesn't look great, or if you're running wrong routes and you're costing and Peyton's throwing interceptions because you weren't where you were supposed to be, to the bench you shall go. And then they're going to go get these other guys to come in. And again, that's why they recruited them. Cam Coleman's going to be on the field. Robert Lewis, I think, is going to be on the field. The rest of these guys, they're going to be waiting in the wings for their opportunity if these guys who are for the incumbents don't do well.
And you got to think about how this helps recruiting wide receivers in the future if Cam Coleman goes off.
Yeah, for sure.
So seeing these guys have that success is going to be very important at the wide receiver. This is an important year for the wide receiver room.
Absolutely.
Forward. All right, Mike G, tell the people how they can get a green name and get access to some of our exclusive content, sir.
Get a green name up in there by signing up as a patron. $5.99 a month will get you there. We appreciate everybody who does this. We had some signups. We had some gifted memberships. We had all that. And this hour of the War Rapport on a Wednesday at the Midweek Report. We appreciate you guys for doing this. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast network, the Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec, bringing you guys lots of audio-only content. Also, hook up with show sponsor BetUS. Guys, if you are betting on sports this spring, this summer, do it with our partners at BetUS. The link is in the description of the video, so you can click that link. You'll get 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,500 if you use our link. They issue payouts within 24 hours. They got 24-hour customer service over there. Also, show sponsor The Rage Room. Check them out in Opelika or at Birmingham, both downtown locations. If you want to get your frustration about Auburn sports out, tell them that the War Rapport sent you. They'll hook you up with a bottle of water. You get thirsty busting up all that shit at the Rage Room. I'm telling you, it's tough over there. But they're great show sponsors. We appreciate them for sponsoring our Wednesday night show. Again, they've got Opelika and the Birmingham locations, so go check them out at both those locations. And last but certainly not least, show sponsor Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. If you didn't know, 1 man every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer. In fact, testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer among men aged 15 to 35, with April being National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. Our friends over at Manscaped have partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to help spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. Visit manscaped.com/TCS to learn how to check yourself for early signs of cancer. And as always, you can use promo code RAPPORT for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com.
And before you get out of here, please share this video, guys. Smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. You can find us on social media, Twitter, X, IG, even Facebook at The War Rapport. You can find us at TW Rapport for TikTok. That's it for now, guys. We would definitely see you on Friday with the morning drop. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.